Author James Patterson, I think I read somewhere, or was told by somebody who knows this, that 1 in 36 books in the United States has your name on it. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I hear these things, but fake news, I don't pay any attention. Yeah, there are a lot of people who like my books, which is terrific for me, and it's also good that people are going into bookstores and libraries.
How many books do you have that you're working on right now?
I lose track, but there's usually a dozen or so books that I'm doing at one time. I mean, last year I wrote 2 books by myself, and this is a weird one. If you think this through, I wrote 2,500 pages of outlines last year, and all of my outlines are 3 or 4 drafts. So 3 or 4 drafts of a 2,500 page whatever, which is all imagination. It's all just making up stories. It's here's the story and here's how I see the story going. You know, we have a book that I'm doing with President Bill Clinton, and
has that been started
outline.
Yet?
I'm sorry.
You've done the outline?
Oh yeah, we're halfway through. Yeah, we meet frequently, we talk on the phone a lot, and it's great. I mean, it's because he's a good storyteller too. And he has information about the presidency and the government that other people don't have. So it's going to be a really it's called The President is Missing, and I'm so proud to be working with him.
So who's the first drafter? Are you the first drafter, or is he the first drafter?
I never get into exactly how it works, but that isn't how it works.
When does that due out?
Next summer.
Where did Alex Cross come from?
It's a long time ago, but a piece of it was when I was growing up, my grandparents had a small restaurant in upstate New York, and the cook was a black woman named Laura, and she was having problems with her husband, and just the way our family was, they said, well, move in with us. And she moved in with us for about 3 years. And during that time, I spent an incredible amount of time with her family. And they were smart and funny and interesting, and their food was wonderful there. And I actually kind of preferred being with her family than being with my own family. And that always stuck with me in terms of just the workings of her family in particular, and just families that I met during that period. So that's kind of, especially where Nana Mama came from. Nana Mama, I guess, would be a combination of this woman and probably my grandmother, who was one of these people that, she would go up and fix her own television antenna when she was like 80 years old, and she'd be up on one of these rickety, like literally up 3 stories, and you'd be going, oh my God, she's gonna fall, That's not how she died.
When did children's books become a part of your career?
The children's book thing, I think when, we have a son, Jack, he's 19 now, and when he was little, he's a very bright kid, he wasn't a big reader, and when he was 8, I've been sort of stimulated to write books for kids because, my books, the pages, people turn the pages quickly, and that's useful for kids to get them involved. And but when Jack was, and he wasn't a big reader, and that summer, and I wish more people would do this, we said, Jack, you're going to read every day, and he said, do I have to? We said, yeah, unless you want to live in the garage. And so we went out and got about a dozen books, some at the library, some in bookstores. And by the end of the summer, he'd read all 12, and his reading skills went crazy. And when Jack took his SATs, he got an 800 perfect score in reading. So that's what can happen. But it's not going to necessarily wind up in an 800 SAT, but the kids will become good readers if they read enough, most kids. And and parents need to take responsibility for that. They need to understand that it's their job. It's in the same way that you teach your boy maybe how to throw a baseball, or you teach your girl how to write a book, and those are good things to do, but getting them reading is even more important.
Prior to becoming an author, you had a life. I mean, you had a life prior to, you've not been an author your whole life.
Yes, I was in advertising for several years, but I've been clean for over 20 years now. So I don't know why you brought that up. No, it got me to understand communication better. It got me to understand that there's an audience, that you're going to talk to people, and you have to hold them. You have to hold their attention, and they're not necessarily interested in what you have to say. And I think that's particularly important with children's books.
That first manuscript that you wrote, what was it? Was it easy to sell?
The first book I wrote, I was 25. I just gotten out of, I went to graduate school at Vanderbilt, and I wrote a detective novel. It was turned down by 31 publishers. It then was bought by Little Brown, and it won an Edgar as the best first mystery. So go figure. Here's a book, it's turned down by 31 publishers, and then it wins an Edgar Award. So I mean, that, for anybody who's writing, you can get turned downs, and sometimes they're just not paying enough attention, or they're just not that smart. I don't know, whatever it is.
And you've been with Little Brown ever since?
Well, I left for a while and I came back. So I've been with them, in total over 25 years. It's been a really nice relationship.
You have you have a nonfiction book that you're working on. Where did this come from?
Well, I've written a couple. I wrote Murder at King Tut, and then I wrote Filthy Rich, which was about a guy who I ran into a few times in Palm Beach, a billionaire who was accused of having relationships with several underage girls who he would bring into his house. And I'm doing one right now on Aaron Hernandez.
Why Aaron Hernandez?
I just think it's a fascinating story, and we have a lot of insider information in terms of what went on at the University of Florida, things about his family, various things about the Patriots. So, and I don't want to hurt anybody, but it's a fascinating story when you get somebody who had not just the physical gifts, but he was a bright guy. You have the gifts. He had, obviously was making it in a big way. He had just signed I think a $40 million contract, and yet something was wrong about this guy. And some of it goes back to his father died very unexpectedly when Aaron was 16, and something happened there. Something went terribly wrong, and so I just. It's a story that I just couldn't get out of my head, and it's going to be. I think it's going to be a terrific book.
James Patterson, we're also identifying you as a literacy advocate.
Yeah.
What are you working on?
We just do an awful lot. My wife and I, we have scholarships for teachers or people that are studying to be teachers at, I think, 30 universities now. We have over 450 scholarships for teachers. So that's one thing. And I'll do graduation speeches. I did it at some of these schools. I've done them at Manhattan College. I did it at Mississippi State, Arkansas. Just did University of the Pacific. We have programs with Scholastic. We gave away, almost $2 million to school libraries last year. This year we're going to do classroom libraries, which is, I think, even cooler. Because a lot of times these teachers are putting up their own money to buy books for their classes. So that's what we're, and so far, I mean, in like 10 days, we got like 20,000 teachers saying, please help our classroom. We do a thing in the holidays where we give out just bonuses to people who work in bookstores around the country. And in a lot of ways, that's the most gratifying because they always write letters. The letters are always articulate and emotional. And, you got to understand with a lot of these people, they don't have much money. So all of a sudden, $1,500 or $1,000 just sort of comes out of the sky. And, I remember, like one woman wrote back and she said, I can go to the dentist this year. And, I mean, that's the reality. A lot of people, working at bookstores, there's just not any money there. So that's a very rewarding program. And there's other things that we do.
How anonymous can you be these days walking down the street?
It's really not bad. It's not like, you're Tom Hanks or Tom Cruise or, Nicole Kidman. People, they'll notice, they might smile, but mostly people give you their space. Here a little more because it's just full of indie booksellers and whatever. And a lot of them, we've helped out. So they'll come up and go, I'm such and such from this place, and you gave us a grant, and which is very emotional, and they want to meet Sue and I. which is, that's very gratifying and fun.
James Patterson, author and literary advocate, author of over 150 books, thrillers, romances, children's books, young adults. 350 million books as of January 2016 have been sold.
Okay, that's kind of crazy, but I don't think about that honestly. But as I say, it's nice to be able to do what you wanted. Somebody said you're lucky if you find something you like to do, and then it's a miracle if somebody will pay you to do it. And that's my situation, obviously. And especially, I have my own children's imprint at Little Brown called Jimmy, and we do my books and other authors as well. And the motto, the mission of Jimmy is when a kid finishes a Jimmy book, they'll say, please give me another book, as opposed to I don't like to read. So I think it's a good, smart way to go, and that's what we try to do. And if we can do that with kids and get books in their hands where they go, give me another book, we'll go a long way in this country in terms of making this country more compassionate, more thoughtful, a little less of a little better judgment when we're dealing with the political process, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you for being on Book TV.
Yeah, it's great.